The Ascent of Mount Carmel by St. John of the Cross, a synopsis. Book 1. Departure from inordinate appetites and imperfections requires grace of God. There are two principal nights of purgation and purification. The first active night of sensory part is in the first book, and the night of the spiritual part, the second stanza, is in the second night of passive purification is this for the spiritual part. Now the first stanza. You depart on the dark night because you are attracted by God and enkindled by love. Your house is still because there is privation and purgation of the appetite for external things and delights of the flesh and gratification of the will. Sense purgation and deprivation. You are free from sufferings and anguish of the appetites till they sleep. There is no encumbrance now. There is only sheer grace that you can depart. But nobody on its own can enter this night unless God helps the person. The dark night has 3 points: point of departure, the means, the road, and the point of arrival. The point of departure is the mortification of the appetites, that is the night of the senses. The means of the road is by faith, which is the night for the intellect. And the point of arrival is God, is a night to man. Now we take the example of Tobias. There are 3 nights in the life of Tobias as he walked with Raphael. The first night he was told to burn the fish heart in the fire, that is, example of a human heart attracted to worldly things and creatures. So he needs to detach himself from all these things. The second night he is admitted into the patriarchs and fathers of the faith and accepted into that. So you live your faith with charity but excludes other intellectual knowledge. No senses are involved. And the third night he obtains the blessings from God. God communicates in all darkness. Then he would be joined to his spouse in the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord is the love of the Lord which transforms the soul into God. That is the perfection. Now any night has 3 parts. There is early evening, midnight, and early dawn. The early evening is symbolic of the night of senses. The midnight is the night of faith, whereas early dawn is when God communicates with the soul. The first cause. Nakedness of the night for the soul is the deprivation of the gratification for man's sensory parts or appetites in all things. Man feeds on the positive past experiences, worldly things, by means of his appetites. Now, when we deprive our appetites, they are in void and darkness. So, we experience darkness with respect to our appetites. Now, appetites are delights of hearing, pleasures of seeing, fragrances of pleasing, palate and tasty, delicious food, delights and satisfactions of the touch. The soul, when put in the body, is in a very clean slate. All knowledge it gets is via the senses, which are the windows. Then it becomes like a prisoner in a dark dungeon and knows only what it sees by the prison windows. Psalms 87 verses 16 says, I am poor and in labor from my youth. David was rich, yet he was not fixed on the riches of this world. He was poor. If poor, without will, not through poverty, as appetite is rich, full of desires and cravings. Therefore, things as they cannot enter the soul in themselves are not an encumbrance, but the will or appetite dwelling in them causes the damage, and they can possess things, yet we can be free and empty of them all. Therefore, you leave the house and begin the journey through the dark night to God. Now, why is it necessary to pass through the dark night, that is the mortification of the senses? Because all attachment to creatures is darkness in God's sight. When these dominate, man is incapable of receiving God's pure, simple light. There are 2 contraries which cannot exist, that is light, which is God, and darkness, which is attachment. Any attachment makes a person equal to the creature. The firmer the attachment, closer will be the likeness, more will be the equality. That is, the lover and the object of the love is always equivalent. You love a creature, you are equal to it, and you become lower than it. That is, a love subjects us even lower than the loved object. Love of creatures is not capable of pure union and transformation in God. Creature is always baseness, creator is sublime. Jeremiah 4:23 says, I looked at the earth, it was empty and nothing. I looked at the heavens and I saw they had no light. In comparison to God, all creatures are darkness. Man is in darkness because he is attached. He cannot comprehend light, which is God. So there is no likeness between what is not and what is. So this is a hindrance to the soul to be transformed. Unless all attachment is purged, you cannot get God. Rather, in heaven, there is beatific vision and transformation in God because we are not attached to any creatures but we are purified. The beauty of the creatures versus the infinite beauty of God. It is cannot be compared because there's always a big gap. You can consider creatures as utterly at the lowermost level with respect to God's sublime beauty. All grace and elegance of creature versus the grace of God, it is utter coarseness and crudity. The goodness of creatures versus the infinite goodness of God. The wisdom of human beings compared to the infinite wisdom of God is utter ignorance. There is no value for human knowledge. Ability is only with union with God. You set aside your own knowledge and walk in God's service like unlearned children. Then you get the wisdom of God. You go by the way of unknowing. All sovereignty and freedom of this world cannot be compared with the Spirit of God. It is utter slavery, anguish, captivity. No freedom in the heart. You are dominated by your appetite. You need God's help to free you from this slavery. The delights and the satisfaction of the flesh cannot be compared with the delights in God. It is intense suffering, torment, and bitterness. All wealth and glory of creation cannot be compared with God's wealth. It is utter poverty. Love for creatures makes one miserable. All riches and justice in God, and with Him it is much more happier and precious. You cannot be satisfied with God alone, but also with things. Why? You want meat. Why is there wrath of God which came upon the Israelites? Contempt of things, then only you can receive God's Spirit. Luke 14:33 say you renounce everything in order to become the disciple of Christ. Manna was given only when the Egyptian flour was over. You feed on other things, then anger of God will be kindled. You learn to savor the spiritual food, not trifles and childish things. You cannot weigh in a balance God's things versus the things of the world. Attachment begets esteem, admiration for the object, and therefore offends God exceedingly. Love for creatures becomes more than love for God. Moses alone was taken on the Mount of Sinai because he renounced all things. There were no beasts allowed to graze near it. There were no appetites allowed to come close to it. Habitual effort to renounce and mortify one's appetites will perfect one's virtue. Only virtue is not enough. You need to move by the way of emptiness, nakedness, and detachment from appetites. Now Jacob was sent to Mount Bethel. He prepared an altar. First he had to destroy all the gods, purify himself, change his garments. That is the life of purification. I become an altar of pure love and praise and reverence to God. I need to do 3 tasks. Cast out all my affections and attachment. Habitually deny and repent in the night of senses. Put on the garments of the soul which are in God. Get new understanding of God. Throw away the old beliefs of God. The ability of natural self and attire of faculties and new love of God. In a state of union, all activities now are in divine. Only function of the soul now is to be altar of God to praise, love and adore Him. We become the ark of the covenant. The soul becomes void, hollow from inside to be worthy dwelling place of God. Nadab and Abihu, sons of Eli, died due to lightning, strange fires. Man's love for God must not be mixed with alien loves. If he does that, it is an unworthy altar of sacrifice. The Ark of Covenant and the idol in the temple of the Philistine, the idol breaks at each dawn. Only appetite God permits is the desire for perfection, fulfillment of His law and carrying of the cross. Only law, manna and rod of Moses is allowed in the ark. When law plus the cross in the person, then he becomes the true manna of God within himself. There are 7 examples why we need to mortify our appetites. The harm caused by appetites because they deprive the soul of God's Spirit. They weary, torment, darken, defile and weaken the soul. They forsake me, the fountain of living water, and dug for themselves cisterns that hold no water. Jeremiah 2:13. There is a new form to come. The old existing must be expelled. There are 2 contraries, love of God versus attachment to creatures, the creature versus the creator, sensory versus spiritual, visible versus invisible, temporal versus eternal, heavenly versus sensory, nakedness of Christ versus attachment. Do not give what is holy to dogs, that is, children of God eat from the table with the Father and they share in the Spirit, whereas the dogs get the crumbs. You're never satisfied with your appetite because it is always dissatisfied and hungry. Hunger is caused by creatures. There is only fullness in God. There are 5 effects of sin or appetites which torment the soul. It makes it weary, torments it, darkens it, defiles it, and weakens it. It is wearisome, tiring to man, because men are restless children. He becomes faint with thirst and his soul is empty, like a fever whose thirst increases, like wind which is disturbing the water. The heart of a wicked man is a stormy sea. You do not conquer your desires, you become more and more wicked. The heat of appetite only increases, and therefore sorrow also increases. A famished man is a hungry man trying to fill his mouth that only dries it up again and again. In the appetite of the will, he draws the air of his attachment. Hold back your foot, your mind from nakedness, and your throat from thirst. That is the will from satisfying. It's a desire that causes even more thirst. Secondly, this appetite torments one person in afflictions, slavery and torture till you free yourself from it. There are nails and thorns, appetites, wounds and hurts and causes pain. They are cords of sin which are tightened around you. They are wicked around me like beasts, stung me and burn me like fire. We are fire among thorns. The peasant covered the harvest, and the goads torments the ox to plow. Concupiscence will torment the man who lives under the yoke of appetite to obtain that object of longing. Delilah's desire to know Samson's strength made her faint, and almost she died. In the Apocalypse, in the measure of a desire for self-exaltation, she gave her torment. Samson, chained, weakened, eyes removed, grinds with a millstone, grievously is tormented when the appetite triumphs. The appetite will weaken you, blind you, afflict you, torment you by chaining you to the millstone of concupiscence. The intensity of your torment is directly proportional to the intensity of your appetite. More numerous appetite, more torments. Therefore, it is an invitation of God to come to the waters. The movement towards abundance is the departure from pleasures of creatures. The milk, the peace, the spiritual sweetness, the bread of divine spirit, the soul will get abundance. Appetites, if they are fulfilled, is like a blazing fire. The more hunger, the more food, the more weariness, the more fatigue. He will turn to the right, be hungry. He will turn toward the left, he will not be filled. Right, there is sweetness of the spirit at God's right hand, but it is not granted to him. When he moves to the left, he eats of his appetites with creatures, but again there is no satisfaction. Hunger only increases and he becomes more and more weary and tormented. Appetites, thirdly, darken and blind the person. It is like a vapor, cloudy mirror, which is muddy water. Man's intellect is clouded by the appetites. He becomes blinded. It impedes the sun of reason and supernatural wisdom from illuminating the person. My iniquity surrounded me and I was unable to see. The will is weakened. The memory becomes dull and disordinate. The soul is extremely troubled. The intellect is incapable of God's wisdom, which is like murky water. And the will is incapable of embracing the pure love of God because it is clouded like a cloudy mirror. Memory is obscure. There is less capacity for impressions of God, serenity of God's image, because everything is muddy. The appetites as such blinds the person, blinds the intellect, and the reason is blinded. So man is blinded. One blinds, leads another blind, both will fall in the ditch. The fire that gives heat and light came upon them, the blinding light of appetites. It is within a man, he feeds on it and unable to see the light of the intellect till it is extinguished. Concupiscence enkindles the intellect and is overwhelmed by blindness. The moth is dazzled by the light, flies into the bonfire. Fish dazzled by the light goes directly into the fisherman's net. Cataract in the eyes, dust in the eyes obstructs the vision and blinds it. So therefore we need exterior acts of penance, not enough if the appetite is not denied. Need to mortify, that is very important in order to advance in perfection and knowledge of God and self. Thorns absorbed in his wrath. Appetites when understood are absorbed by God. Chastisement and correction in this life are purgation. When we rely on the intellect and God's gift to think no harm will be done by appetites, it is the worst. These cause havoc and misfortunes and evils only if we know them. Solomon's fall was due to his appetites. He did not deny his heart, which was what it was seeking. He rushed towards his appetites and blinded and his intellect was darkened, and God's wisdom was exhausted. Human nature is very peculiar. It can mistake good as evil, evil as good. Pursue your appetites, you are like a blind man, no eyes. You're groping in the dark, stumbling in broad light. Fourthly, appetites defile a person. The one who touches pitch is defiled. Excellence of the soul is more than gold, diamond. When the gold is on pitch, more stained as heat increases, man fired with appetites is stained and blackened like in heat. It is polluted liquid mixed with mud is filthy than transparent liquid. Attachment to creature defiles the soul similar to the creature. The soothed strokes ruin the perfect portrait. Inordinate appetites defile, dirty the soul. In itself, they are perfect, extremely beautiful image of God. So, therefore, the soul's beauty, the appetites, affections, when they are ordered, they make it whiter than snow, clearer than milk, ruddier than ivory, more beautiful than sapphire. Beauty and excellence of the soul operates as in the Nazarites or those which are blacker than coal. Inordinate appetite damage the soul's beauty and cause ugliness like cobwebs, lizard, unsightliness of dead bodies. Disordinate appetites in the soul, natural state of perfection of the soul is distorted. Rational being becomes ugly, dirty, and full of evils. One inordinate appetite is enough to make a soul captive, dirty, unworthy of God, and no union. Even though there is no mortal sin, you have surrendered yourself to your passion. One inordinate act can cause certain degrees of filth. One perfect act can give you countless gifts and virtues. Ezekiel talks about 3 abominations in the temple. First of all, there were reptiles, that is, intellectual thoughts of earthly beings, creatures painted on the temple of the soul when the intellectual is encumbered within it. The woman seated and weeping is the soul's will, which is not for God, but it is covets the appetites or reptiles which are painted in the intellect. So the woman is weeping. Third part of the soul is the memory, which preserves and reflects the images of creatures. So the man is turning his back on the temple, which is basically the soul and the object that it embraces by the 3 faculties turn back on the temple of God. The soul's reason is totally darkened. There are various degrees of ugliness in the soul, caused by mortal sin, venial sin, which is lesser ugly, and imperfections, which are least ugly. Lastly, the appetites cause the weakness and tepidity in a person. You sap the strength to persevere in virtue. They force a person's desire to be divided and not on one object. More than one object weaker the appetite for each of the object. The virtue is united when it is stronger and focused on one object rather than getting scattered. The desire of the will is not on God. It is weak in virtue. There is no growth. A soul cannot be recollected if its desire is scattered and not for God alone. It loses its strength and virtue in practice of daily life. I will keep my strength for him. So appetites do no good. They rob him. They cause unceasing removal of strength. They kill the relationship with God. They alone can reign and they hold you tightly. This is a sad state. An unhappy man, unhappy with everything. He's cold to others, sluggish, slothful in God things. There is no illness, but there is burdensome walking and distastefulness towards life. Virtue becomes a burden to him. So he is in a constant stage of leakage. He's not rising. Jacob calls Reuben's appetites rained, spilled like water. It's open, aromatic spices. It is hot water which loses its flavor and loses its essence. It shoots the big yearning, a tree sapping its strength. There are no fruits. Woe to them with childs, that is appetites. If they are not cut off, it grows. It takes off from the soul the strength which is needed for spiritual growth. Let your loins be girt, that is, let your appetites be in control, for they are like leeches sucking your blood. They are like vipers growing in the mother's body and eating her and killing her from within. So be aware of your appetites and do not allow them to conquer you. So we need to be free for union with God in purity and nakedness. We have to be free of inordinate appetites. All our appetites are detrimental. There are no voluntary appetites because all cause mortal sin, venial sin, imperfection. When we give consent at the first movement of the mind, natural appetites are not a hindrance, But union with God is God's will per man will when it becomes one. Do not willingly consent to your appetites. You must have the power and the freedom to refuse it. But a just man can fall 7 times a day and rise without control. Voluntary appetites can become impediment to spiritual progress. They are sporadic venial sins, imperfections which do not hinder. So there are habitual appetites, that is loquacity, attachment to persons, clothes, books, some rooms, way to cook, conversation, satisfaction in taste, knowing, hearing. A bird tied to even a thin string or a tight rope is always unable to fly. So when you are attached, no matter how small or how big the attachment is, you cannot reach union and virtue in God. Like you remove a clinging object to a ship, whether it is big or small, it will not allow the ship to reach the destination. You need more courage than deeds, virtues, favors to break the little satisfaction, appetite, attachment that you experience. Some have power to break stronger cords to sin, but it can be even childish things, which separate us from the love of God. Some fail and turn back, losing all that they have achieved. Not to go forward is to go backward. Even one leakage or crack in the pot is enough to little by little sap your strength. When you despise the small fall, the great fire starts by a small spark. Many come identical imperfections from one imperfection. Some fall due to some small thing under the guise of good. It could be small pleasure, satisfaction, like you lose your solitude's joy of God. You can never stop this continuous mortification, indulging in it in order to reach your goal. It is the log of wood that needs to be transformed into fire. In faith, when the will is free, solitary and pure, the union takes place. Now, when we make a pact with the enemies, Israel will be fallen into defeat. Souls withdrawn from the world, that is, giants, are destroyed when sins of smaller enemies try to enter. Greater the freedom into the promised land of union, you can go from bad to worse because God can permit you for your purification. Joshua told them to destroy in Jericho all the idols, do not seize anything. In the soul, even small objects or big objects, few objects or many objects will have to be removed in order to enable union with God. You bear no desire for them. You have to be detached and non-existent to them. Method of entering the night. The appetites cause evil, that is privative as well as positive, 5 cardinal harms. Appetites, however, slight or large, enough to cause damage. In some they cause weariness, some they cause darkness, depending on the type of appetite you are having. Privative harm. Voluntary appetites can cause mortal sin, can cause loss of grace, aversion to God, no life, no glory to possess God. Positive evils, you work all together in venial sin, mortal sin, imperfection. It is related to conversion towards the creature. Privative harms, total harm, no grace, life only for appetite. Very positive harm as per the loss of grace. The extent of a harm is directly proportional to the weakness in the grace caused due to the appetite. Each appetite will cause harm in the soul, but one is directly more, others can be indirect. If you have sensual appetites, it can defile your soul. If you have avarice, it can cause affliction. If you have vainglory and greed, it will darken and blind your soul. If you have gluttony, it will cause lukewarmness in virtue. Act of voluntary appetite gives rise to evils. Torments causes fatigue, weariness, blindness and weakness. Opposite acts of virtue have to be practiced in order to get peace, comfort, pure light, strength and God's guidance. Obstacle to see is the momentary pleasure we get in the appetites. St. John says that you eat the scroll. First it was sweet, then it was bitter once it reached the stomach. So appetites are that way. They do not walk in God and you do not see the obstacle. Only voluntary appetites, not natural appetites, involuntary appetite, thoughts that disturb you, temptation which are not consented to. When you resist, you grow in virtue. That is the purity and the comfort that God gives you. You need to mortify your appetites, be empty of what you desire and become free of it. Once you enter the night of the sense, the active night is by efforts, whereas passive night is God's work. To conquer your appetites, you need counsel. You need a habitual desire to imitate Christ in all your deeds, bring His life into your life, and study him, imitate him, behave as he would. Remain or be empty of sensory satisfaction is not purely for the honor and glory of God. Do this out of love for Jesus. His will is for you to do the Father's will. Desire not inordinate pleasures of hearing, seeing, speaking. Endeavor to live in darkness. Mortify and empty yourself of pleasures. Be filled with blessing, harmony, peace, which are the four important passions: joy, hope, fear, and sorrow. There are different maxims that we can follow. Be inclined to not to the easiest but to the difficult, not the delightful but the harshest, not gratifying but less pleasant, not rest but hard work, not consolation but unconsolation, not the most important but the least important, not the highest or most precious but the most despised, wanting something from to wanting nothing, looking for the best of the temporal things but the worst, desire to enter nudity, emptiness, poverty in everything in the world. Practice these, overcome your repugnance, be disorderly and in discretion, follow the given maxims. Mortify the concupiscence of the flesh, the concupiscence of the eyes, and the pride of life. Act with contempt of yourself and desire all others to do likewise. Endeavor to speak in contempt of yourself and desire all others to do so. Try to think lowly and contemptuous of yourself and desire all others to do the same. But be fired with love's urgent longings. The soul passing through the dark night of sense is going to achieve union with its master. Prerequisites on the journey. More intense enkindling of the love for one's heavenly bridegroom. Only then can one get the strength and the satisfaction in this love, and will have the courage and the constancy to deny readily all the appetites. An enkindling longing of love is necessary. When sensory part is attracted to sensory object, the spiritual part needs to be very strong in order to overcome, because the yoke of the human nature is very tough. The night of the sense, you need to live in darkness of all creatures, denying all appetites. Only then the journey is easy, sweet, and delightful without any trials and dangers. The will by nature longs for pleasures and enjoyment, so it needs a stronger love in order to keep it grounded. It is a sheer grace. I went out unseen, my house being now all still. All passion vanquished, there is denial of pleasures. The soul is captive in the mortal body. Sheer grace to be released from this prison without hindrance of the jailers. The soul, by original sin, is a captive to the prisons of natural appetites, and once it is liberated from this bondage, it is now escaping in grace, unnoticed, unimpeded, unapprehended by passions or appetites. To achieve liberation, depart into the dark night of privation, mortification of all appetites. Then the house is still, the house of appetites, the sensory part of the soul is still, and the desires are conquered or put to sleep, mortified the sensuality of man. The appetites cause no war against the spirit. Only then the soul is free and enjoys divine union.